Hello, hello. Hello, hello. I think we are live. As usual, let me know how everything works. In regards to video quality and sound quality, I would really like to know if this microphone actually works, because last time I also installed the microphone and somehow it didn't pick it up or anything. I don't know. And the sound quality was still not as good as I would have liked to have, as I would like to have it. It actually should make some really good sound. I don't know if you please tell me if you can pick it up. Yes, video and sound good. That's great. That's great. Hope you had a nice day. It was a pretty rainy day here in the south of Austria today. Gotta say, we had some visitors. That was awesome. I cooked some food and we had some good time together, chatting and stuff. So my voice may not be as endurancy as it usually is with the 2-hour live streams. I don't know, maybe we just go for 1.5 hours or something like that, depending on how good the questions are, how many questions we get, and all of that kind of stuff. Puh, hast du mich erschreckt, says offline. Why? Why, man? It's super, says Daniel Rodriguez. Amazing. Yeah, again, this sound should be really good. Okay, just tell me how the sound is. Okay, so I'm scrolling to the top of the chat. Maybe I wait until some people cruise in and some questions arrive. Again, yeah, we had a nice day today. I hope you had a great one too. A bit rainy here. Really chilly mood. We have this second floor here, which is amazing because we are straight under the roof, and when it rains, we can hear the raindrops and everything. So that makes a really nice mood, right? And yeah, we have a couple of really dim lights up here, so we got it really cozy for this stream, I have to say. Simeon Turutin asked a question already before the stream started, so that's really diligent. We gotta answer that one. Any advice for conquering a fear of falling outdoors? Fear of falling outdoors, really common topic, man. Rule number one, you gotta have a great belayer. Okay, a great belayer that you can trust. A great belayer that you can trust. This is the number one thing. And then you do fall training. You do fall training ideally always on your current project, whatever that may be. Whether it's your limit grade or something easier, it doesn't really matter. But you climb above the last clipped quick draw and then you just fall. Okay, and ideally you'd also take unannounced falls. Normally you look down to your belayer and say, I'm gonna fall now. Are you ready? No, not that kind of stuff. You climb into the crux and then you fall still controlled but unannounced. This way you can really test your belayer, right? If he's paying attention, if he's doing the right stuff, if it's getting you dynamically. And if that works out, well, then you can go for it full force, right? And you can just go for the crux and also fall maybe uncontrolled. And if the route is overhanging and everything, your belayer should catch you very softly so that you don't even have any rock contact after your fall, right? Something along these lines. Get a great belayer. Talk about things like where is the scary part of your project? Where are the scary clipping positions and all that kind of stuff, so that you know that your belayer is ready down there. And then it also reduces your fear of falling tremendously. And guess what? For a lot of people, this really is the key to actually sending their projects, because a lot of people just they tend to grab draws if they get tired, right? And if they get fear of falling, and then they stop their attempt, right? So if they lose their fear of falling, instead of grabbing the draw, they try the move, and then they stick it at some point and climb the route. So for some people, when fear of falling is really a big thing, it can be really a door opener, when it comes to projects and stuff. Humberto Esquivel asks, I got a lot of your videos. Nice. My only question would be, how would you train outdoors if that was the only thing that you could do, sport climbing? Okay, so if it was only sport climbing outdoors that I could do, I would already be really, really happy, because that's not common, let's be honest. We all have some sort of jobs where we have to spend some time indoors, or we cannot go outdoor climbing, whatnot. Um, I always consider the people who have only time for outdoor climbing very privileged, and usually they also get really strong because uh, yeah, I gotta be honest with you. When it comes to outdoor climbing performance on rock, you the number one thing that's gonna help you the most is actually that outdoor climbing on rock. And ideally, if you would have access to outdoor bouldering and outdoor sport climbing, you would alternate the two, and probably something along the lines of a 2 month to 3 month cycle. So you would go 3 months outdoor bouldering, then 3 months outdoor rope climbing, then 3 months outdoor bouldering, 3 months outdoor route climbing, until you get injured or until something else happens that prevents you from doing that routine. But this is gonna get you strong as hell, right? Because you get the max strength first, then you transform it into endurance, get the max strength again, transform it into endurance, and that kind of thing. And you're gonna crush super hard. I mean, in a year, you can make so much progress there and you can get so much experience, but it takes a lot of privilege to do that. You gotta have a lot of time to spend on the outdoors. If I could do only sport climbing outdoors, I would alternate endurance routes and bouldery routes, right? I would go 2 to 3 months only bouldery routes and then 2 to 3 months only endurance routes and alternate these two. And this way, get strong as hell, right? Get strong as hell, get a lot of experience. That's what matters. Mauro Fugi says, "Hi, I wanted to ask you if there are good crags in Leonidio, also in the grade 6, or hard stuff only." No, there's not at all only hard stuff. There is a really good, easier climbing. There is this crag called Hot Rock, I think, which is straight above the village. I haven't been there so much myself, but there's like, I don't know, 50 routes, one after the other, something like 6A, 6B, 6A plus, 6B plus, 6A, 6B, all the time, right? So there you can really, you can burn yourself out on these kind of grades. You can climb more routes in this crag alone, of this grade, that you will ever need in your lifetime, because while doing that, you will get so much stronger that you don't need these kind of grades anymore, and you go somewhere else to apply your new strength on some 7As or 7Bs, right? So yeah, definitely. There's also easier climbing and also quite good easier climbing. But I think this Hot Rock is quite in the sun, as the name says. So yeah, maybe go there in the winter. And if you're there in the summer, you gotta search for something else. Tim's Lab says, cold, dry, and cloudless day in South Africa. Perfect winter condies. Sounds good. You do stuff in the Rocklands or what? Naja, vergessen, dass ich den Stream im Hintergrund offen hatte und plötzlich fängt wer an zu reden. I can understand that. Daniel Rodriguez. Do you think it's a good idea to start trying 512s if I can send 511s in almost 2 sessions? Or what do you think? I mean, in Yankee Doodle grading, 512s and 511s, I don't really know where that exactly is. Just let me look it up. All right. Let me look it up. Schwierigkeitsskala klettern. Where I always go to, actually, I just go to the Wikipedia page of climbing, of rock climbing, and scroll down to the difficulty scale to have the conversions, because I really still don't know the conversions from European to Yankee Doodle grading. And 512, so that's 512A is 7B, and 512D is 70 plus, apparently. And people always tell me that these grades are wrong. I don't know, is that wrong? I think that sounds perfectly reasonable for me. If I can send 511s in one session, that's 6C to 7A plus. In 2 sessions, you say? Yeah, for sure. Go for it. I mean, if you can climb 7A plus in 2 sessions, you can definitely try a 7B, I would say. Why not? And 7B is already 512A, right? So there you go. Just go for it. There is really nice and consumable 7Bs out there. That's what I always tell these people. That's a question of great respect that you're asking here. Can I already try this or that kind of grade? Of course you can. Just don't have great respect. Just try it out, and you're gonna see that there are perfectly consumable 7Bs out there, and probably even some 7Bs that are easier than some of the 7A pluses that you already did. Right? It's always this kind of thing. It also depends on the grading, the grading standard, not only the sheer number. So what do we have? Oh, we've got Mona.
Hello.
You're in the frame. What's going on?
I'm going to eat some cherries.
Oh, these are not from our tree, but from our neighbors, actually.
No, from our friends.
Oh, really? No thanks. No thanks. Not for me anymore.
Eat with me auf sofa.
All right. She's gonna chill at the couch. If you have questions for Mona, don't hesitate to ask. I will transmit them. Julian Neubacher. Hi Manny, do you know if there's a forum where I can get information about projects that have been sent or new routes being established? I specifically care about the projects at Peilstein near Taligrad. Wow, that's an interesting question. I don't know if such a forum exists. Unfortunately, on 8a.nu, which is the main, route logging site that I am using, there is no such thing as a, just that there is a new project established and not climbed yet. You only get there for seeing the first ascents and that kind of stuff, right? So unfortunately, I can't really help you here. I should know about projects regarding Peilstein near Taligrad, or actually I don't, because I've never been there. I've only been at Taligrad itself. But there's a couple of really, really hard old school routes at Peilstein. That's what I've heard, especially in the Brunswinkel and also some other sectors. Crazy hard and also crazy good stuff. I don't know why I personally never went there when I was around in Vienna. This is definitely something that I have to catch up on, because apparently it's really amazing. But yeah, forum just about projects and where routes are getting bolted and stuff like that. You really have to know the right people to know this kind of stuff, right? If you know the right people, then you can find out this kind of stuff on your own. Eve Hotgon says, hi, my boyfriend is a climber and introduced me to your channel. That's amazing. Greetings to him and to you. Nicolo Dalmonego asks, the strength difference between my arms is pretty big. How can I reduce the difference? It's not the finger strength, mainly the pull-up strength. Well, for me, it is also the finger strength that is really different between my right and my left arm. In my right arm, I'm quite a lot stronger when it comes to finger strength than in my left, around 6 kilos actually, 6 kilos more finger strength in my right arm. And pull-up strength, I'm a lot stronger in my left arm. I never could reduce this difference, to be completely honest with you. I tried just to do every training that I do as parallel as possible, as symmetrical as possible. I always, switch up starting hands and do the same movements. What you could try, what someone suggested, by the way, I made a video about this topic, strength imbalance, left and right, quite a short time ago. You can check it out. Someone suggested that you could always, if you do a hangboard session, for example, do the first hang, if you get to a new rep, the first hang with your weaker hand and only the second hang with your stronger hand. This way, you should always get a little bit more focus on your weaker hand, right? But yeah, to be honest, I have the feeling that this stuff is really genetically dependent. Depending on your genetics, you're always going to have one weaker hand, significantly weaker hand, and one stronger hand. And to conquer that, yeah, since we can't change our genetics, it's going to be really hard, right? I don't know. I didn't manage for myself to equalize my hands, right? Co-win art class. Have you participated in an IFSC World Cup competition? Would you like to participate in the future? What about bouldering championships? I definitely haven't. I mean, I did compete in one real official competition, which was not a hobby competition, something like that. But not in an IFSC World Cup competition, of course. And I of course, also not in real bouldering championships or stuff like that. I'm not really psyched for it to do it, to be honest. I'm not the plastic climber kind of guy. I don't like to stick around in gyms for a lot of time if it's not on a system board or a moon board or something where I can train strength which is translatable to the outdoors, because this is my main playground. Outdoor climbing, rock climbing is my main playground. That's what I like to do. It sounds like an excuse, maybe. I could, of course, also try to go for competitions and all that kind of stuff. It's actually quite fun. Always when I do it, I enjoy it actually quite a lot, but I don't train for it, or I don't, as I said, I don't like to stick around in gyms for too long. I'm more the nature kind of guy. I like to be in the outdoors. And when I'm indoors, then it's only because I'm forced to, and because either because the weather is bad, or I have to train something indoors that I need for the outdoors for whatever kind of reason, whatever that may be, right? Because as I said, outdoor climbing is actually best for outdoor performance. So yeah, that's that. Mao Fungi, question on training in 40s and 50s, which sometimes you talk about. Since you are below 30, I think that's correct. I'm 29. How would you know about training at older age? Direct experience from people you know, research. It's from people I met, people I know and I met. I started climbing in quite an old school bouldering gym, actually. And there's quite a lot of people, some of the old school crew climbing around Vienna and stuff trained in that old school bouldering gym. And that's why I have a little bit of insight into, training when you're above 50, training when you're above 40. And, how should I say? What you can still reach at that kind of age, relative to your genetics, relative to your constitution, and that kind of stuff, right? To me, it looks like the following. If you meet someone who is really, really strong in their 50s, like let's say some guy climbs 9A in their 50s, which is amazing. Usually they already climbed 9A in their 20s, right? This is just what I've observed. This is this is by far the most common case. It is really, really rare that someone starts at 40 in their 40s and climbed 9A in their 50s. I think it is possible if you have extremely good genetics, and if you're a super lean kind of guy, if you maybe did always some, hard manual labor with your fingers, and you've got that kind of finger strength naturally, then it's still possible probably. But to me, the more common case is that people who are really strong, they already climbed really strong in their early age and just kept that strength in the old age, which is still an amazing accomplishment. Because I don't know if I want to, I don't know if I even want to climb 9A when I'm 50 years old, because I can only imagine how much stress it is for my body to climb a 9A now, right? It's already so much stress for my body to climb an 8C plus now that I'm 29. I feel like this is, it's just an extreme sort of stress to my tendons. And because I'm not a perfect body type. I'm not bad, but it's not a bad body type, but I'm not a perfect body type for climbing, right? I'm a heavier guy. I don't have so much reach, and I have quite fine, small fingers actually. So it's good for some things. For pockets, for example, it's really good. But for other things, big moves, dynamic moves, contact strength, and this kind of stuff, you would need a thinner body type with longer arms, longer legs, this kind of spider-like human being, right? And then when you look at bouldering videos of Jakob Schubert, for example, right? This is just amazing to see these long arms working, the betas that he with which he crushes some of these problems in Magic Wood recently. with which he flashes these problems, right, with super big moves and kind of stuff. It just looks completely different than what I look when I boulder, right, or when I do some route climbing, because I have just a different body morphology, and that is completely okay. I'm aware of that, but this is also, of course, limiting me, right? And I know if I want to do this kind of stuff, I have to do it now, because later it's only gonna get harder. And if I can hold my level into my old age, then I would be really happy as well, of course, right? Because it would be amazing to climb super hard at an old age. And you can still make gains in an old age, definitely. But it's a lot easier, obviously, if you're young, right? This is why I don't have the experience myself, but I've seen it in other people. I've met also a lot of people in the meantime. I mean, I'm doing this stuff for 10 years now. I think for 9 or 10 years, I'm going on the outdoors. And beyond that, I did 3 years only indoors. So I'm doing this stuff for quite some time now. And I met and talked to a couple of people. This is what I have, what I feel. Hi, Manny. How do you feel about ape index? Do you think it is a big disadvantage to have arms shorter than your height? Not a big disadvantage necessarily, but of course, it would be useful if you have long arms. Let's be honest. That's just the way it is. If you have long arms, I mean, look at Adam Onra, for example. Look at Jakob Schubert. Look at these body types. Look at Daniel Woods. Yeah, long arms. And especially if you're very short, a really positive ape index really, really pays off, because it still gives you the reach, but it doesn't increase your body weight as much as having more height in total, right? Long arms increase your reach, your absolute reach that you have to the upwards in total, but don't add as much body weight to your body that would be added if you're just overall taller, right? Does that make sense? Yeah, having good ape index is definitely useful. A lot of people talk about leverage and stuff. Oh, but then you have bad leverage. But yeah, I mean, leverage that's a question of training, right? That's just a question of muscularity, having the right muscle attachments and that kind of stuff. If you're just strong enough, you can overcome leverage. That is maybe a bit worse if you have a bit longer arms. But the additional gripping distance that you have on rock and the additional options that you have in terms of footholds, in terms of handholds, this will never be outweighed by better leverage and shorter arms. That's not possible. And this is something that is really useful for on-sighting as well, for example. So I think one reason why Adam Onra is such a good on-sighter, I mean, he has tons of experience and stuff, but he also has a lot of flexibility. He has really long arms and really good footwork and stuff like that. And this way, he always finds the best option for that kind of crux, whatever he just climbs at the moment, right? Because he can just he can go for the big dude option, and he can go for the small dude option, because he has the flexibility for the small dude option, but he also has the reach for the big dude option, right? If I come to a certain crux or someone even shorter than me, they only have the small dude option. And they have to find that, right? Very often there is a very obvious big dude option and a very not so obvious small dude option. Then it's getting harder, So yeah, ape index, definitely bigger ape index, in my opinion, is an advantage. Tim's Lab says, still lockdown here. Still lockdown in South Africa. So up north, climbing at local crags, Bronkhortspruit. Okay. Interesting. On moonboard problems, I feel like the difficulty is mainly due to holes being far apart, which makes it not so hard for climbers with nice ape index, but terribly hard when you have shorter arms. Yeah, I had this feeling a little bit as well when I did my first moonboard session, and not necessarily because the reach is so big between the handholds, but there is this stepper right down there with all the small little footholds. And a lot of boulder problems require you to step a couple of times on that stepper before you actually go into the fully overhanging part of the moonboard. And for me, it was really often the case that I had to step into the fully overhanging part earlier because I couldn't reach those footholds down there anymore, right? So yeah, here absolute height obviously plays a role as well. Cool, interesting questions today, I have to say. Wow. Chat is jumping down. I think I jumped down in the chat now a little bit. Skipping some questions. Sorry, guys, if your question got skipped, then please ask again. Simply. Finger Dinger says, would you recommend to work on the project if you are not in perfect shape, or rather skip the session and have a rest day training session? If you're not in perfect shape and you know you need perfect shape to send your project, and it's also not great conditions, so that you maybe get a lucky, out of shape day, then it's better to go for something else. Okay, that's why I say have your side projects, so that you have something to do in case you can't send it that day. This is so useful, man, because it's also so convenient for your psyche, right? Because if there's just only this one more thing to do for you and the conditions are bad or you feel bad, then you just burn out. You know it's not gonna work. You're gonna be less motivated. You still have to try it because there's nothing else, right, to do. And this way you can lose sight on a project. Have your side projects where you can spend energy towards to when the days are not perfect, right? And sometimes just simply resting, and if you know the conditions are bad, for example, and you're in a bad shape as well, simply just then not going to the project and having a rest day can be just as productive, in fact, especially if you've been trying the project for the last couple of days already repeatedly and you're kind of fed up with it a little bit, in the back of your head. Just have a rest day, just have 3 rest days, maybe lose a bit the connection to the project, get a bit, in the background, and then attack it again when there's good conditions. And often enough, people then send it right after they get a significant distance from their project. Let's say they haven't tried it for 2 weeks or something like that. Of course, they thought about it in the back of their head, but they haven't tried it. And then they come back and all of a sudden it clicks, right? Because their body had time to adapt to the stimuli and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, if it's really at your limit, a lot of strange factors really play a role, right? So what do we have here? Julia Neubacher says, all right, thanks. Yes, Peilstein is really amazing. You gotta go there. I climbed around 200 routes at Peilstein and can't get enough. Wow, 200. Would really inspire to me to see you on the hard stuff there. Yeah, I gotta check out the Brunswinkel, man. The Brunswinkel sounds really good. That's all I know. I haven't been there. It's actually crazy. Finger Dinger, would you recommend to work on the project? That we already answered. Hey Manny, any experience with numbness in the fingers? I've been dealing with a numb ring and pinky finger for over 6 months now. Haven't found a fix yet. Do you also have numb toes, for example? If you have numb toes and numb fingers, you should check your B12 levels, by the way, for example, because this can actually be a nutritional deficiency. And this is when you slowly lose connection to the very tips of your nerves, right? It's really dangerous stuff, actually. So if you experience numbness in the toes and in the fingers, then check for that. If it's just because you've kind of maybe you slipped and you got your fingers into a crack, or you just had this one super hard crimp and you felt it tingling a little bit in your fingertips and now they are numb for like 2 weeks or something. For over 6 months now, you say, and you haven't found a fix yet. So that's quite long. Usually this stuff goes away, in my experience, after 1-2 weeks or something, if it's just a smaller local thing, right? Yeah, definitely observe it. Definitely observe it if it's getting worse. If it's getting worse, I would really check for the B12 thing actually. Aiden Scarfy, what's your dream route? Wow, my dream route. Maybe Action Direct. At least try it. At least trying it would be amazing at some point, and I'm gonna try it. That's for sure. I'm gonna try it. Georgi Ivanov spams eat meat. Okay, yeah, we got it. Most accessible crags near Vienna without a car. Without a car. Without a car. Good question. I think actually that the Adlitzgräben are surprisingly by train. You just go by train, and then you walk for 15 or 20 minutes, or better, you take your bike and you ride for 10 minutes or something. Adlitzgräben, really accessible. Stuart Grossman says, "Come climb El Cap with me." I would be up for it, but yeah, I gotta go to the USA for that, and yeah, it's quite far away still. Nicolo Darmonego asks, "Did you take the lattice training test? Would you be interested?" Yeah, I'd be interested. Why not? I didn't take it so far. Rats van Ave. But there is the side effect with longer arms. Having long arms will be harder for lever effect. Does it make sense? Yes, it makes sense. That's the mainstream argument against long arms, is that you have worse leverage, right? But the leverage, for example, something that influences leverage a lot is muscle attachments, right? Muscle attachments like this, where this is where your brachioradialis attaches to your forearm, to your upper arm, for example. But if you look at Adam Ondra's arms, Adam Ondra has extremely long arms and he has extremely good muscle attachments. So I'm not sure if the length of his arm really influences him in a negative way, leverage-wise, because it's kind of counteracted with this muscle attachment thing, right? So really, there's a lot of factors in that. In general, I would say longer arms are usually better when it comes to climbing, right? That's just the more common sense thing. You just have more options. You can do the big dude beta, you can do the short dude beta. That's it's kind of obvious. Klingston66, hey Manny, have you been climbing in the Wiener Neustadt climbing gym? Yes, I was there once. And I actually tried the moonboard. It was really nice. I also tried the other boulders, but I actually spent most of the time on the moonboard. It was cool. Ratzwan Adabai. Ababai. One question. Me and my friend have a similar height. I found that his finger length is much shorter than mine. Does it matter for climbing? Yes, it does matter. First of all, finger length obviously increases your ape index, so more finger length will give you more reach. But with finger length, there's actually a worse side effect that I would say when it comes to leverage than with in the elbows and shoulders and stuff like that. Because here leverage actually plays a big role. If you crimp with long fingers, the forces that arrive in your joints are just huge compared to crimping with short fingers, for example. Also, short fingers have really a leverage advantage, or let's say just simply a size advantage when it comes to pockets. Because that's why usually kids are very strong on small pockety climbs, because for them it's just simply jogs, right? The smaller, thinner, and shorter your fingers are, the bigger pockets will be relatively to you, right? So what could be a small pocket for someone else who has long and big fingers could be a joggy pocket for you, because you can get 3 fingers in and you can get them in full length, whereas the other guy can only get 2 fingers in and only can get them into here or something, right? So this is how finger length is actually advantage in a lot of ways to have shorter, thinner fingers. But yeah, when it comes to pure reach, longer fingers are better. But here I would actually prefer long arms, but then small little fingers attached to these long arms, right? That would be the probably ideal combination, a combination that you probably don't find very often out in the real world. Kara Hedgespath asks, my highest rope grade is 512C. So we're gonna go to the scale to see what that actually is. 512C, that's 7C. 512C Yankee Doodle is 7C French European grading. And bouldering is V7. What is V7? Let's see. V7 is a 7B. This is 7B bouldering. So we're talking 7C route climbing and 7B bouldering, all right? I'm focusing more on the bouldering right now. Any tips on how many days I should be climbing conditioning per week and what I should be doing? Focusing more on the bouldering. I would say with a 7B bouldering strength, you could actually climb 8A routes already, by the way. In case you're interested on how that converts to route climbing, to sport climbing, you're focusing more on the bouldering, well, then go outdoor bouldering, right? The best training for outdoor bouldering is outdoor bouldering by far. And then comes hangboarding and campus boarding probably, because you want the finger strength and you want the explosive dynamic contact strength that can only be trained really on the campus board or on indoor boulders like a 45er and stuff like that, 45er system wall. But yeah, campus board and hangboard. The best would be to just go outdoor climbing and do the indoor days, then do some hangboarding and campus boarding afterwards, getting a rest day, and then outdoor bouldering again as much as possible, and be careful that you don't get injured. And if you get injured, no problem, then just take it easier for some time, let the injury heal off, and you're going to be stronger afterwards. That's always how it goes. Maybe a boring question, but how tall are you? I'm 173 centimeters last time I checked. Finger Dinger, have you been climbing in Pfalz, Germany? How did you like it? I think I haven't been climbing in Pfalz. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if Keitersberg is in Pfalz. I don't think so. I don't think Löbejün is in Pfalz. Is Löbejün in the Pfalz? I don't know where the Pfalz really is. I think it's something in near of Frankenjura or not. I have been in the Frankenjura, but I haven't been in Pfalz, I think. Tips for improving the front lever. What are tips for improving the front lever that are not obvious? Here's one tip actually for the front lever that's not obvious. And that is stretch out your fingers. Okay, if you're doing it on a pull-up bar, you can grab the pull-up bar like this and do the front lever like that, or you can stretch your fingers out and just grab the pull-up bar at the highest possible point of your arm, so that the pull-up bar is as far away from your body as possible. And this way you actually, for some reason, get better leverage. I don't know how that works, but I realized this one day when I tried a front lever on the small Beastmaker edges, left and right of the middle edge, right? And surprisingly, I found, in terms of finger strength, it's of course harder than holding yourself on a pull-up bar. But in terms of the body strength aspect, it was easier for some reason, right? And I figured it was because the edge of the Beastmaker was, of course, further away from my body compared to when I was grabbing a pull-up bar like this. You can't grab the edge on the Beastmaker like this. You have to grab it at the tip of your fingertips. And this somehow moves the edge further away from your body, and it makes the body strengthy part of the front lever easier for some reason. So that's a really interesting thing. That's a tip for improving the front lever that is not obvious. The obvious ones are just do front levers, do some, front lever ups, and do a lot of training. And at some point, you're going to get it. And also use a camera so that you see if your ass is hanging through. And if it does, then pay attention to it. And it's actually making a huge difference, whether you do it in a clean form or a sloppy form. The clean front lever is double as hard than the sloppy front lever, hands down. David Hansa says, I did some super bouldery 8As and 8A plus on rope. I also do a lot of bouldering, but haven't done a graded boulder. Where could my boulder flash and red point grade be? Probably. Where could be my boulder flash and red point grade? Okay, so you do super bouldery 8As and 8A pluses on rope. Your boulder red point grade will probably at least be something like 7B plus or 7C along these lines. And your flash grade would be probably somewhere along the lines of 7A, 6C plus, 7A, along these lines. Simple. Ooh, chat is jumping down. I am taking the opportunity and just answering the more recent questions. So what do we have here? Albin Westin says, yo man, just started climbing outside, being inspired by your videos to mix it up, but having such a hard time doing overhangs outside compared to indoors. Any tips? So you're much weaker on overhangs outdoors than you are on overhangs indoors. That's interesting. Usually if the people are good at overhangs indoors, they are like these gym kind of climbers. They search overhanging routes outdoors because that they know that they are much better at that than on the on the more technical slabby old school stuff, right? Having a hard time. Have you checked your fear of falling? Maybe you have more fear of falling on the outdoors on overhangs compared to indoor overhangs, because for some reason people have this kind of symptoms. When it's about real quick draws and they are in real air on real rock, out of a sudden, the overhang feels just much more scary compared to indoors. For some reason, I don't know why. It's not actually that more scary. It's not actually that more dangerous. But people are more scared. So check for that. Apart from that, maybe it's body strength, because usually on the outdoors, there's a lot smaller footholds than compared to indoors, especially on the overhanging indoor routes, right? You get more big holes, you get jaggier holes, and these holes become then quite easy to step afterwards, after you have used them as handholds, right? On the outdoors, you often have the case that you get quite okay handholds in overhangs, but you have really smeary and crappy footholds, which require a lot of body strength to step on them, to not slip and lose your feet. This is something that you could pay attention to as well. Y16 says, wo findet man motivierte und zuverlässige Kletterpartner als Anfänger? How to find reliable climbing partners as a beginner? Und wo würdest du dich von fremden Kletterern sichern lassen? And would you allow a stranger climber to belay me? I would, if that stranger belays me with a gree-gree, right? Then I would. If this stranger climber only has a tuber, I wouldn't, because a tuber requires a lot of attention, and I didn't have enough time to estimate the character of this person to see if they actually have this kind of attention to belay me with a tuber. A gree-gree is going to save my ass even if this dude makes some stupid mistake, right? So, and of course, if he's just completely stupid, then I just don't get belayed by him at all. But if it's a normal person with a gree-gree and they are a stranger to me, yes, they can belay me, actually. I trust the gree-gree that much, actually. The gree-gree saved me a couple of times already. And how to find motivated climbing partners as a beginner? Well, I can't tell you how to find reliable climbing partners. This is something that you have to use your social skills for, right? You can select people according to their reliability and find the people that are reliable and that are good belayers, for example. But where to find them? Of course, in a climbing gym. in a climbing gym. The climbing gym is the place to be when it comes to finding partners for the outdoors. Usually there's a lot of people who go on the outdoors anyway in a climbing gym. They are training for the outdoors, right? So go there, talk to people. And also, if you're completely desperate, you just can go to a frequently visited crag around your area, wherever you are. And usually, if you just go there and say, okay, you're alone, you meet some people who are 3 people, right? They are 3 people with one rope, and you have your rope as well. Well, then you can join them and you create 4 people. So that means now you have 2 and 2 people to belay each other, right? Something along these lines. On the more frequent crags, for example, in Siurana in Spain, where it's always pretty reliable to find a lot of climbers there, it is very commonly seen that people just go there alone and expect to find someone who can belay them. And it usually happens, right? It usually works out. So if you have a crag like this near your vicinity, wherever you live, then do it like that. This is how I did it as well on the Norway trip, by the way. I just selected crags where I knew and a lot of people would be. And then I just went there and talked to the people and tried to finding groups which are in an odd number so that I can belay someone and in return they can belay me. And that's how you start. Razvan aber bei Romania is good too for rock climbing and multi-pitches. If you want to try some fancy 8C projects, you might be interested to go in Picats or at Baile, Herculane for some 9A. Sounds great, man. Sounds great. I'm already thinking about the next Greece trip and how we're gonna go down there. And I really liked the route that we took on the way back up through first Bulgaria, then Serbia, and then Croatia. And the original plan was actually to go through Bulgaria and Romania, right? Because Serbia for the longest time didn't open its borders. So we were thinking about going over Romania. And these are super beautiful countries, all of them, really. I expected them to be more arid and more dry, more like more Balkan-like, like when you go on the coast in Croatia or Montenegro or Albania even. But I was surprised to find a lot of forests, super green, just amazing nature, really. And I think when we go down the next time, we will go over this route again, something like Serbia or even Romania, who knows, and Bulgaria. Checking out this stuff and taking more time, right? Because this time on the way up, we just were in a rush. We just wanted to be at home finally. But next time we're going to have more time. So yeah, let's see. Matteo Lonelli says the front lever tip works. Of course it does. Of course it does. Yeah, instant feedback. Isaac Frank says, hello. I was wondering about development in climbing. Have climbed about 6 months and can do around 7B in bouldering. What's the best way to improve after that? And is that a normal progression? I think 7B bouldering after 6 months is quite strong, especially if it's outdoors. If it's indoors, you can get some kind of strange super double dyno boulder, which is graded 7B, and you do it a couple of times, you train the coordination moves, and then you just do it, but it's not really a power tester, right? If you can do 7B on the outdoors, that's already quite massive. That's requires quite some finger strength and body strength and everything. So if you can do 7B on the outdoors in 6 months, that's actually quite impressive progression. What's the best way to improve after that? Keep going. Whatever you're doing works, obviously. Okay, keep going. if you're on the outdoors, do more outdoor bouldering, and after some more time, try to do it for a year, maybe for 2 years, and then you can start mixing in some more sophisticated training like the campus board or the hangboard to increase finger strength even further. Then first injuries will develop. Then you gotta sit out those injuries. Then you get even stronger. And this way you develop, right? In terms of outdoor bouldering, when it comes to indoor bouldering, depends on what you want to do, of course, because these are actually in the meantime almost two different sports, right? Talking about outdoor bouldering and modern indoor bouldering, in the meantime, that's two different sports. It's not really the same thing anymore. If you want to be good on the indoors and you want to do competitions and that kind of stuff, well, then go for it and do indoor bouldering. Get a good indoor bouldering gym, which with route setters that are actually able to set good coordinative stuff, train that kind of stuff, and then do competitions, man. You can go for it right away. Yeah, then this is the way to go. Statom Semani, what would you say about having more than average developed gluteus muscles in terms of climbing? Well, the glutes is pretty much the ass, the ASS. I don't know if it's really helpful or really detrimental in any way. Maybe it helps for body strength. Having a tight butt sometimes can really help to be a board, in the overhang. It's gonna help you to hold the body strength up if you got that hip stiffness, so to say. But yeah, also gotta have this hip flexibility at sometimes, to be able to step high, and it always has to be in the balance, right? We have to be the balanced athlete, the balanced warrior, mind and body, yin and yang. We're really spiritual here today on the Man in the Monkey Network. But yeah, I don't see why it's super helpful or detrimental in any way. I mean, big glutes are obviously heavy, so in that way it's detrimental, right? It doesn't really help to have a super big glute because you gotta carry it up the rock. That's the problem. But other than that, why not? Gaggy Otter, I just started climbing this year. I got hooked and just climbed 5 times a week, and I got really sore elbows. What do you recommend to help my body keep up? Take it easy. Take it easy. And Mona says stretching. Yeah, if you know how to do it, if you can stretch the right way, and this can definitely help, I think. But the number one advice that I would give is taking it easy, keep climbing. But keep climbing below the pain threshold, right? Your body sends you a signal. You shouldn't go over that signal. You should try to avoid it. Climb below the pain threshold and climb the injury away slowly. Again, these things can take time. I have my little elbow tendonitis in my left elbow for almost like 3 years now or something, right? And if I go really, really hard on it, on some hardcore projects, it comes back. That's just the way how these injuries work, man. Yeah. I'm pretty sure, despite that I will see the day that it's going to be gone completely. All right. I know that because it's getting better and better and better. And I really have to crank down some super small edge. Like, for example, on that 8C Plus project that I did, I had to crank down one super small edge with the left hand all the time. And even though I did that, I didn't have major problems with the left elbow. I could feel it a little bit, so that it reminded me that it still is there, but it didn't limit my climbing, right? And that's amazing, because that's almost as if you are not injured. You can only feel it here and there sometimes. And now during the trip, I didn't feel it at all, almost, because I didn't really do any super hard routes. Like I just did, a couple of 8Bs and some super hard 8B, but a couple of 8Bs and more endurance-y stuff. So not something as intense, which could really ruin your elbows like that. So let's see. Are there any interesting questions, guys? What do you have? Jules Lacoste asks, do you think you can know approximately the max grade you can climb within a lifetime? Well, it obviously depends greatly on your starting age and your genetics, right? If you get the ideal starting age, which is 5 or 6 or something along these lines, and you have decent genetics, I say average genetics. So that's actually an interesting question. What grade can you reach if you have decent genetics and the ideal starting age? I'd say you would reach 8C. I'd say you reach 8C. If you have decent starting age, let's say you start at 15 and you have perfect genetics, I'd say you would reach 9A. And if you have perfect starting age and perfect genetics, you can reach 9B and beyond that. If you have perfect starting age but completely bad genetics, you would reach 8B or 8A plus or something along these lines. It's actually really interesting to think about that stuff. But yeah, of course, these are only gross estimations, because then we also have to talk about what is actually perfect genetics, right? I've talked about it in many videos. You can check them out to see my point of view when it comes to perfect rock climbing genetics. Chat is jumping down again. I'm gonna take the opportunity and just answer the recent questions. If I skipped your question, try to type it again. Kingdom says, what do you think about Vienna already being 50% immigrants? Probably only 25 of pupils are Austrians who make migratory background. In 20 years, when they are the vast majority, will you stay in the city? This is super off topic, but it's a valid question. It's a valid question. And to that, I can only say I'm not in the city anymore. I'm not in the city anymore. I have moved to the south of Austria, more in a countryside place, for my own reasons, of course. But what I can say about Vienna, I mean, Vienna, like any other big Western city, it is subjected to the same developments that all other main Western cities are subjected to. Whether that's good or bad, that is personal opinion, the way, the direction we are taking here. But it is definitely parallel, you know. And whether you like it or not, that's personal. But yeah, for me, living in a big city like that, it didn't really have the flair anymore that it had when I was young, right? When I was studying, then I had a reason to be there. I was a city warrior back then. I drove my bike to the university. I studied. I drove my bike to the climbing gym. I trained. On the weekends, I went outdoors to go rock climbing. It was amazing. It was a great life. I enjoyed it as long as I had a purpose there. But in the moment, I realized that studying is not really what I expected it to be. It was good until the bachelor stuff, but then on the master, it just got too specific and it was too much useless knowledge. When I realized that studying is not necessarily the holy grail, right, of life, I didn't really have a purpose in the city anymore, because I can do my YouTube videos, which is what I was really psyched about then. I can do it wherever I have internet. I don't have to stay in a city for that. And yeah, in terms of life quality, for many reasons, not only because of what you wrote, but for many reasons, being not in a big city nowadays is a lot better, right? That's all I'm gonna say to that. This is a very, it's a touchy subject. We're touching a touchy subject here, which is okay. We can do that, no problem. But yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. Toby J15 says, how often do you train your arms, fingers per week? At the moment, I'm resting actually, but normally I would go for 2 times per week for the fingers, right? 2 times a week for the fingers. If when we talk about hangboard training. Mladen Pucic says, what did you climb in Serbia and how did you like it? Unfortunately, I didn't climb anything in Serbia, but I was at a crag. In the very south of Serbia, there is this national park, super green, lots of forest, and it really looks like, it almost looks like rainforest, right? It's super dense. It was also super green because it was summer, there was obviously a lot of rain there just before, and the leaves were coming out everywhere, and it was this really saturated green dense forest. And there is this national park. I forgot the name. Let me look it up. I look it up so that I can tell you exactly where I've been. I was really surprised by Serbia, man. I expected a much more arid country, but it's so green and it's so beautiful. It is so beautiful. Yeah, there is this city called Nice or Niche. It's like an N-I and an S with this small little tick on top of it. And then down there is this some sort of national park here, I think. Where was it? Yeah, there are some sort of mountains. There is a little gorge, a river running down there, and there is this cave which is above the river, not too big, kind of a limestone cave with interesting rock. And I would have really liked to check out this climbing there. I don't know that the city is Niche. It's gotta be near there somewhere. Probably you already know what I mean if you know the country. And we checked it out. We checked a couple of small little cracks there out and it looked amazing. This is why I want to visit it again when we are on the way down again to Greece at some point. So that would be awesome. R Lassie2 says, hi Manny, are you still practicing leg splits? And have you actually found them useful in climbing? Yes, I do. I do it actually every time I warm up for climbing. The reason being, the increased flexibility makes you a lot more precise and a lot more quick with your stepping. Most people think flexibility is only useful for high stepping and high heel hooks and splitting your legs apart on small footholds, which you otherwise can't reach. But this is only a very small fraction of use. In the real usefulness of having flexibility is that you can reach what is already in your range of motion more easily and more precisely, and therefore also more quickly, right? You can get your climbing a lot more flowy that way. This is why I always recommend to people, if you have problems with flow and quick climbing with speed, then take a look at your flexibility. And you can try this yourself. If you stretch properly, like 30 minutes, and then you go warm up traversing on a bouldering wall, you're gonna notice it so much. You're gonna notice it significantly how quickly your stepping is gonna be, right? This is the main advantage of having flexibility in the hips. You step faster, you step more precisely, and this way you get more flow into your climbing.
I didn't follow the chapters today. I forgot.
You didn't follow what? The chapters. Oh my god, we don't have chapters. Usually Mona writes down on a little paper while we are chatting what we're chatting about, right? So that we afterwards can make timestamps in the comments to have a little bit of a shortcut to the different topics. But this time she didn't.
Oh no.
But it's okay. It's okay. She does it almost every time.
Next time again. Next week, maybe?
Yeah, next week. Maybe next Sunday. The poll that I did was slightly in favor of Sunday. Most people actually said both days were good, Thursday and Sunday, with regards to an evening live stream. But yeah, I like the Sunday kind of idea, because the internet seems good. I was a little bit worried about the internet connection, because on Sunday evening, obviously, a lot of people are gonna hang in the net and watch Netflix or what kind of stuff they do, and then I usually have a bad connection. But this time it actually works really, really well. So
Maybe it's because it's my laptop.
yeah, your laptop is also better. My laptop is at the service right now because it's gone bad. This is gonna cost a lot of money. Hell, but yeah, we gotta do it. And this laptop is actually Mona's laptop that I'm streaming from right now, and it's an older model. Okay, take that.
Is it older?
It is older, of course. It's an older model of the MacBook Pro thing, right? I have the next generation MacBook Pro, which she then compared to hers. I don't have the newest, of course, because the newest ones are ridiculously expensive. But I have the older one, and she has an even older one. But still, hers is faster, and it's also better in any other way because she has got all the plugs. Still, it's crazy what they do with these new MacBooks now. They add useless functions and remove useful functions, and they are slower, right? So I don't really know what they are doing. Yeah. And they are more expensive, of course.
So we try to keep ours.
And you can't get once a new generation comes out, you can't get the old one anymore. I mean, how logical is that, right? It's just this is the planned obsolescence times that we live in nowadays. Great times to be alive. Jazz Fennec Henson says, "Hey Manny, love your videos. Thanks, man. Have you ever been in climbing in Malta?" No. I actually haven't. I have never been to Malta before. I think. No.
Me neither.
You neither?
No.
Kara Hedgespeth says, "Should I do conditioning on the same day as climbing? Should I train one muscle group in the morning and one in the afternoon, or should I train them in one session?" Conditioning for me means everything you do with your body that's going to increase the chances for ascent apart from training, right? So, for example, things like doing an evening run, doing fasting, doing a small meal. This is kind of conditioning, right? Conditioning yourself for the ascent of your project. It depends on the kind of conditioning that you do, how many days before the attempt you start with your conditioning, right? So I can't really answer that. Should I train one muscle group in the morning and one in the afternoon, or should I train them in one session? Again, that depends on what you do. You could do one bouldering session in the morning and one hangboard session in the afternoon, for example. That's not really different muscle groups, though. We're talking about climbing. So the only muscle group you really need anyway is forearm, right? So it's not really about different muscle groups in rock climbing. You also need a little bit of body strength, that's true, but you definitely need forearms, man. So yeah, go for that every session. Until you get injured, then take it easier and climb away the injury. Enzo Balzaretti, do you think that by warming up every single day, you create in yourself a nocebo effect by not warming up, like psychologically more vulnerable? Interesting question. Possible, but even if you did, I would still go for warming up all the time, right? Warming up properly, and it's not really the warming up, the classic warming up, like, doing an easy route before you start projecting hard. No, that's not necessary. What is necessary is that you mobilize all your joints. That is necessary. And then you go to the wall and just grab some stuff, or you mount your little portable hangboard and just grab some edges. If you just do that, you can go right into your project right away. Except maybe if you're 50 to 60 years old or something, then you might actually need a proper warm-up route, because your body just takes more time to warm up, right? As we get older, we need more time to warm up. Young little kids, 5 years old, they can go from standing, from rolling around on the floor to sprinting in 1 second and not get injured. That's just because their bodies, they are just like gummy bears, right? They are rubbery. They are rubber, essentially. They work like that. As we get older, we get more stiff. We need more time to warm up. We need more time to lubricate joints. This is the main thing, lubricating joints and tendons. And how do you do that? You do a small little mobilizing routine. You don't need to actually spend an attempt on a route and already waste skin and time and energy like that, okay, which is something that you could need for your project. You just stay on the ground, you move all your joints to the end of their range of motion, you stretch a bit, and then you go to the rock and grab some small little edges to activate your fingers. That's it. This is what I do for warming up all the time. I rarely do a warm-up route in the classical sense. If I have a project, I warm up like this, like I just described, and then go in the project right away. Because this time I can save the most skin and the most energy for the actual project, which is the main target of the session anyway, right? Unless I'm in a bad shape or the conditions are bad, then I go into my side project, right? So this kind of strategy. Chivil says, do you think the age you start climbing matters for your max ability? Yes, of course, hugely. I am quite young, 17, but I'm always comparing myself to friends who started far younger, the freakish 12 and 13-year-olds. Yeah, the freakish 12 and 13-year-olds, they're gonna kick your ass if you only start at 17. And guess what? The freakish 5 and 6-year-olds that started at this age, they are gonna kick the butts of these dudes. Right? So you can start really early when it comes to climbing. And it's huge. I just before talked about comparing perfect starting age with perfect genetics and what's more important for your lifetime max. And overall, if you still start at 17, which is still quite young, if you have perfect genetics, you will still get the 9A. That's my personal opinion. If you have decent genetics and you start with 17, you would still get to 8B plus, 8C-ish or something. If you have decent genetics and you start with 5 years old, you can probably still get to 9A. Yeah. But you really have to start early and be consistent with it. And, you got to have this kind of thing that you never get injured in your older days because you already did all this adaptation in your early days, like with Ondra. When they interviewed Ondra, he told them, they asked him, do you never get injured in your fingers? Ondra shows his crazily mutated, deformed hands, into the camera with super thick fingers and everything. Do you never get injured with the kind of forces that you do? And he's like, no, I never get injured. He wasn't even knowing why they asked such a stupid question, right? Why is that? Because he started super early and he went through all these phases. I mean, the dude climbed 9A at 13 years old. So he went through all these phases before 13 where he didn't even recognize them. And then, of course, he didn't get injured anymore in his later years because he just kept this fitness up and just kept going. And this is where he is now, right? This is the fitness that he has now. It roots in these early years, the early years from 5, 6 years old to 13 years old when he climbed his first 9A. So this is what we're talking about here when we're talking about early starting age and perfect genetics, man. Perfect example of that. Then you really have 9A at 13 years old. That's how far it can be. And you can go far beyond that in your later career, as we are seeing right now. Malta is a tiny island country in the middle of the Mediterranean, south of Sicily. We've got loads of outdoor routes up to 8C+. I'm working on my first 7A. You're a huge inspiration for me. Cheers. Thanks for all the info. Thanks for making me salivating about climbing in Malta. Maybe we can visit Malta at some point. Sounds great. I'm getting huge and heaps, loads of these suggestions all the time during live streams, and I would love to take just every opportunity to them, but the truth is that there is much more climbing out there than we could ever do in our lifetime. It's just crazy. There is, I mean, even in Leonidio, where I was now, right, over these last 3 months, I think there is enough climbing in Leonidio already to spend one whole Manny the Monkey lifetime there. Just projecting, and it's not even everything bolted. There's not even everything bolted. You could still bolt new routes there, new projects, super hard stuff there as well. Possible 9A pluses, 9Bs. You could climb there a lifetime easily. So it's really, you have to make decisions at some point. You have to make decisions what you want to visit, what you want to leave out, because you can't visit everything. That's just the unfortunate truth. Of course, I'm gonna try my best, but yeah. Christian Paul says, "Come to the Frankenjura." Yes, man. I really want to go to the Frankenjura desperately. Maybe even late summer, this summer. Who knows? Huh? Maybe we will have a small little, we have a small little companion at this point probably already who comes with us. But the Frankenjura is an amazing place. It's beautiful, beautiful forests, nice and green, and nice climbing. Hell of a good climbing. Lots of bouldery, power, endurance stuff, just how I like it. Moon Hing Yu says, "Ever climbed or DVS, deep water solo, in any Southeast Asia countries, Krabi in Thailand or in Vietnam? If so, any favorite places, crags, and enjoyable memories?" I've never been to Southeast Asia. I've never been to Asia in general, I think. Have I been to Asia? No. I've never been to Southeast Asia, definitely. I heard good stuff about it, and I saw cool videos about it. There's actually a couple of cool videos about the place. I think what you mentioned in Thailand, in Krabi. Krabi is a beach, right? It's this beach with this huge limestone cliff there or something, which is directly at the beach, and there is one 8C or 8C plus route, if I'm not mistaken, which looks really, really good, man. But what I also heard is that there's obviously we're very hot there a lot of time in the year. It's very humid. So the conditions are not the best, but yeah, that's what you live with if you're there, right? So you can't really complain about it. At least it doesn't make a lot of sense to complain about it. Tip number 1, to become a good climber, start climbing at 3. True. True. Camilo Bernal says, "How would you recommend outdoor climbing on a budget? I went to Zillertal a few years ago with a climbing tour, but it was quite expensive." Yeah, man. To be honest, climbing tours really are just a way for for climbing instructors to make money, right? To take them out, they take out the climbers and then they show them their favorite routes and everything. But yeah, it's a way to make money. Just go yourself. It's not really that complicated, or there's not really anything that holds you back. Find someone in your local climbing gym, talk to the people. Maybe there's someone who would be psyched to go outdoors as well. Then let yourself be instructed, right? Go to the gym, and they should, for example, because in the gym, all quick draws are pre-placed. So you don't have to place quick draws on your own. On the outdoors, you usually don't have quick draws in the routes already. There is some with fixed draws, but not by far not most of them. You have to place them yourself, the quick draws. And this is why you get an instructor. This dude shows you how to place the quick draws yourself. This dude shows you how to belay, what you should do anyway, right? When you start climbing indoors. And usually it's the same. Like, you also obviously have to know how to fiddle your rope through an anchor if there is not a snapper up there. But if you know all this kind of stuff, then you can simply go outdoors yourself, and it's going to be a lot cheaper and a lot more enjoyable as well, because maybe you've got a friend with you, and then it's kind of an adventure. It has this adventure feeling. I still remember when I went outdoors for the first time. It was ridiculous. I did have zero experience at all, and we just started lead climbing right away. I mean, we didn't have any other choice. There were no top ropes put up for us, right? So we had to put them up for ourselves. We started lead climbing right away, and nothing went wrong. It was really just intuitive and logical what has to be done, and it worked. And we made it luckily enough through the first phase, where really a lot of stuff can happen if you're just not careful. And then with the routine and everything, you really reduce. The more time goes by and the more time you stay uninjured, the more reduce your chance for injury through human mistakes even more. And then after some years, if you're getting really into the routine, the chance of man-made injuries due to man-made mistakes actually increases again, because the routine and everything really is dangerous at some point. You have to Routine can really kick your butt, right? Always check the knot at the end of your rope. Check if you have made the right climbing knot. Just check everything. The carabiners. Do a partner check. Just do always a partner check, no matter how routine you are. And don't get sloppy with belaying. The kind of belaying that we see a lot of times in the videos of pros even is ridiculous sometimes. So yeah, pros are not a good example especially for beginners. Beginners should really learn how to belay perfectly, even with all the semi-automatic devices that we have nowadays. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say to that. Kind of got driven off topic there, but Adam Sharma, will you come to Font one day? I would love to. It would be a pleasure for French followers to climb with you in such a place. It would be a pleasure for me as well, man. It would be a pleasure for me as well. I hope I can get there someday. We already talked about making a trip to France at some point, because we met some really cool French people now in Leonidio during this trip. It would be cool to visit Font. It's also a very amazing nature and everything. It's cool sandstone bouldering in a small forest in the south of Paris, I think. So we can check out Paris and then go for some bouldering. And if you're already in France, then we can check out the south of France right afterwards, which is and then maybe Spain, and then then we just keep going. No, definitely, I will visit Font at some point. I'm sure about that. Which splits do you think is more applicable to climbing, front or middle? I think middle, but front is also useful as hell because you can really step high. With being able to do a front split allows you to step as high as you can step morphologically. So yeah, that's important. Nicolo Darmonego says, also Magnus Mitbo claims that he's never been injured, even though he barely does any warm-up. It's crazy. Probably he started really, really early, right? Then this is totally imaginable, because then you go through all these adaptation phases in an age where your cell division is still so ramped up that you don't even notice your tendons getting bigger. I mean, if you're older, we almost have to get injured to stimulate our tendons and joints like that to become adapted to this sport. If you look at my hands, you can see the sport in my hands already. You can see the thickened joints, the tendons, and everything. But it took me quite a couple of injuries, small little sores, sore fingers, sore A2 pulleys, and all that, to make them adapt that way. It's not for free. You have to put the work in, and then you're gonna get injured. And that's why I sometimes say it's almost necessary to get injured at some point, because otherwise you are not stimulating your body enough to make those adaptations. So yeah, if you do it at a very young age, good for you. Kudos. You're a lucky dude. But I mean, yeah, you're a lucky dude, because it's not really in our hands what we do when we are that young. It's more in the hands of our parents. And if they do a great job in introducing you into the sport in a perfect way so that you don't hate it, that you rather enjoy it, which is psychologically challenging, more challenging than you would expect. Because even if both parents climb, there is a good chance that your offspring actually hates the sport because you're always dragged into the crag. You always want to climb yourself. You know, they're not gonna like it. Or the completely other way around, they just get super psyched along with you, and they want to do what you're doing as well. This, of course, would be the more ideal case because then you don't have so much resistance. But it really can be anyway. And maybe it's also the thing how you do it psychologically, right? How you introduce them psychologically into the sport so that they actually stick with it. They have their success events and they always want to get better. And then they do get better. Then they really do get better. Best ways to find partners for hard sport climbing in Vienna, especially since I unfortunately don't speak German. Well, then speak English. In Vienna, everybody can speak English, and obviously you can speak English as well because you're writing in English in this chat. So speak English, talk to the people in gyms. There's a lot of people in gyms. There's a hell of a lot of people in gyms in Vienna. And I'm pretty sure there's the one or the other guy who's also who would also be motivated to go outdoors. Obviously, if you want to do sport climbing outdoors, you go in a sport climbing gym, probably the Kletterhalle Wien, for example. It's a big gym in Vienna. You can talk to a lot of people there. Replying okay to idiots. That's a cool channel name, by the way. Hi, I've been bouldering for over a year and still only reliably send 6B. 8B would be pretty impressive. But okay, 6B. Only reliably send 6B. Yeah, I mean, only might be the wrong word. I mean, 6B is something, right? I'm self-conscious about attempting higher grades in front of other better climbers in fear of looking like a poser. Any advice? Okay, you're not that important. You're not that important. Forget about that. You're not that important. Not everybody is looking at you when you're trying to on-site or flash something harder. You don't look like a poser or anything. Just go there and try the boulders. That's really no problem. Sounds like you think that you're that important that everybody then looks at you and judges you and says, he's too weak for the problem. No. Don't think like that. Just do your thing. SR Oaxaceño, I think you pronounced that. Oaxaceño, is that the person who lives in Oaxaca city, maybe? Or in Oaxaca in the state of Mexico? Hey Manny, thanks for all the content you do. Just wanted to invite you if you ever want to climb in Chile. Liebe Grüße aus dem Kletterparadies Cajón del Maipo. Okay. Sounds interesting. Mm-hmm. Chile. We got a new invitation.
Wow.
Chile.
So much to do.
Yeah, there's so much to do, really. But yeah, that would be awesome. Actually, to visit Chile, it's in the Andes, right? The Andes are there. Chile. Let me just really quickly type it. Oh yeah, absolutely. They are at the west coast of South America, along the Andes. And there's a lot of good climbing there, you say? It sounds like I should visit it at some point. Nick Chegodayev says, Manny, what shoes do you use? At the moment, I use Scarpa Instincts VS. And I tried a lot of shoes. I tried my favorite shoe, as you know, is the 510 Team, which is now out of production, unfortunately. Huge tragedy. But now I'm climbing the Instinct VS, and I gotta say, I'm positively surprised. I was not so a fan of the Scarpa Drago, which I had before that, because they are super soft. But the Scarpa Instinct VS seems a lot harder. and a lot more durable. And that's what I like in a shoe. I don't like to spend over €100 on something that goes down in 2 months. I want to have that stuff for half a year at least, maybe even a year. And then I want to resole it, and I want to be able to climb it again, even 3 more months with the new sole. I use Dragos. Yeah, the Drago, again, as I said, they're super soft, and in warmer conditions, they really get super soft and slippery, and they lose a lot of rubber super quickly. So not so in favor of durability. Luca XPD says, I started climbing outdoors last year, and I still think I can't climb my max because I didn't get used to rock 100%. I still have the feeling that I can do better. What do you think about that? So climbing outdoors last year. Still think I can climb my max because I didn't get used to rock 100%. The better was. Yeah, obviously more rock climbing. More rock climbing will really help you to apply the strength that you maybe gained in the gym, which you probably did. That's what I did as well when I started off. I spent 3 years almost solely in the gym. And then it was just about applying that gym strength to rock, which took me around, I think, 1 year or something, 6 months to a year. And then I actually climbed already 8A. Then I did my first 8A sport climb because I was able to apply the strength that I had from the gym, from the old school bouldering gym where we had a lot of really small holds. It was good climbing terrain for training for the outdoors. I was finally able to apply that to rock, and then I could climb 8A after half a year to a year or something like that. So yeah, keep climbing on the outdoors, have a reliable climbing partner who goes with you, and at some point you're gonna find that you stall out in your progression, and then you actually are there where you can apply 100% of your gym strength on the rock, on the outdoors, and then it's time to train or do something else then it's time for a more sophisticated approach to the sport to keep progressing. SR Oaxaceño says you got that perfectly. I was born in Mexico, Oaxaca, but grew up in Germany. Wow. Now I live in Chile. That's quite a journey, man. It's quite an interesting journey. They have cool sectors there. The most famous being Valle de los Condores. Oh, the valley of the vultures, so to say. Megos and Ondra were there. Nice. We have to check it out at some point. We have to check it out. What makes a better climber? Projecting or do as many routes at which level? My highest grade one is 8A. I guess you mean pretty much the pyramid thing that I talked about in my most recent video. What makes the better climber? Always trying to push the max grade or trying to broaden the pyramid below your max grade. And I think as long as you keep progressing, as long as you're able to push your max grade, you should actually do just that. Push your max grade as much as possible until you hit a wall, and you're gonna hit that wall naturally anyway. The reason being that this way you can erode the most grade respect. Okay, you can get rid of the most grade respect, and beyond that, you're gonna be put into place by your starting age and genetics anyway, right? And the nature of climbing. But if you go to the highest max grade that they can reach at a certain point, you can look at everything below that and say, okay, I already did it. This is already in my reach. And then you can always broaden your pyramid below your max grade anyway later. If you don't do that, if you stop, let's say your max grade potential is already 8A, but you stop at 7B at some point for some reason because you think, okay, no, now I reached 7B. Now I have to broaden my pyramid first before I try a 7B plus or a 7C. Then you broaden your pyramid, but doing a 7B plus and doing a 7C will still feel the same. It's not gonna feel that much easier than if you just would have gone for it right away. At least that's my opinion. My opinion is just go for the highest max grade that you can reach at a time, and then once you hit a wall, which you're gonna hit anyway, then broaden your pyramid until you get enough experience and enough strength to be able to push your max grade even further. And then you broaden your pyramid again, and then you push even further. And this is a beautiful, it's a beautiful, never ending story like that until you obviously stall out completely because you've reached your genetical limit. But that's another story. Have you ever tried deep water soloing? Unfortunately, not so far. I live nearby Arco and so the Garda Lake, and I would love to try. Any tips? I haven't tried it myself. I still need to visit the good places for that. Like for example, Spain. In Spain, there's a couple of good spots I know. I haven't got to it yet. Bob Holmes, thoughts on working the deadlift and maybe bench press and squat as a climber? Not really necessary. If you want to do these kind of compound movements to look jacked and be able to look in the mirror or stuff like that, you can do them, of course. Or maybe some people also think that they are important for their posture and keeping their general health. If you're that kind of guy who thinks that it's important, of course, there's nothing wrong with doing them. But in terms of how useful they are for climbing, I can only say again the thing that I say all the time, which is that the number one muscle group that we need for climbing is this one. It's the forearm, right? This is what we want to have. This is what we want to have. Everything else should be as small as it can get because that's only additional weight that we have to carry up with these guys. So, yeah. For climbing, not really necessary. For keeping up posture, for having general health, why not? Maybe necessary. I don't do them. I never did them at all. I don't know. I just never really was motivated for that kind of stuff. And I still have quite decent general health, I would estimate. So maybe not really necessary also for general health. Who knows? But maybe necessary if you want to look in the mirror and say, hey, I'm a pretty jacked dude. Maxim Kolesnikov says, did you try La Sportiva Solution? Yes, I did. What do you think about it? Not my shoe at all. I don't really like it. I don't like the bulkiness of the shoe, first of all. I like more, it's also a very wide shoe, wide toe box, which doesn't fit really well on my very narrow foot. It's a really bulky shoe, really bulky heel hook. I don't have a lot of feeling in there. I don't like it. It also has a very soft rubber that goes away like it's in warm conditions. The shoe wears off super quickly, in my experience at least. A lot of pros climb it though. A lot of a lot of really good climbers climb the shoe though. So I suppose it's pretty good if you have the right foot for it, but I just simply don't have the right foot for it. Ervas Rudi says, best crags around Vienna for bouldering and sport climbing. Well, for bouldering, I can really recommend Merkenstein, one of the best, nicest bouldering areas that I know, actually. Super specific style, super non-consumable, super harsh and not friendly boulders. But it's so rewarding to climb boulders there for some reason. One of the most rewarding ascents I did in my climbing career, I did in this beautiful forest. And I wouldn't like to miss any hour that I spent there. It was just an amazing time, just me and my crash pad there and projecting those really harsh and bad boulders. Sport climbing, really good is the Talhofergrad. Really good is also supposedly the Peilstein, although I have a lot less experience with that one. And what I know is really good is the Atlitzgräben. It's about 1 hour and 15 minutes by car. I don't have experience with a lot of climbing outdoors outside of Europe. I only know inside of Europe. And inside of Europe, the hardest grades in terms of bouldering, I definitely had in Austria. And to be more precise, in Merkenstein, the bouldering area that I just talked about, crazy hard grading. When it comes to sport climbing, I think the hardest grades that I did were also in Austria. I can't really think of any hard. No, now I know something. Now I remember something. Another area which is also graded really, really hard is Czech sandstone. Czech sandstone at the western Czech border, the Elbsandstein area, right? This is also graded tough as hell, and it's also very mentally challenging. It's almost like free soloing to the first bolt, and then it's super big distances between bolts and everything. So there you have an additional mental factor, and the routes are graded super tough. I remember I tried an 80 plus there. I knew right away that I wouldn't be able to do it on the same day, which is what I would have to have done if I wanted to send it at all, because I didn't have a lot of time there. But of the Czech Republic, the western border to Germany, and yeah, Austria, and especially the east of Austria. In the east of Austria, and the small limestone crags, there you can get really, really tough grading as well. With regards to South America, I don't have a lot of experience with that, unfortunately. So here we have another interesting question. Erva Rudi says, I hit my wall after 14 months of bouldering at 7B. Actually, one outdoor boulder at Königshöhle. That's a nice cave, the Königshöhle. How should I proceed? I keep trying hard. Are you injured? Did the wall come upon you because you were injured? Then reduce the intensity a bit and climb the injury away. If you just hit a wall and you can't go any harder, then just keep trying hard. If you're not injured, keep trying hard. Try to mix in some new stuff. Maybe you're 14 months in. If you're not injured at all, you climb already bouldering 7B. It's quite decent. You're not injured at all, you could try mixing some hangboarding, mixing some campus boarding. Try finding a new project, maybe a 7B plus boulder. Try to analyze what you really miss on that project. Maybe it's that one super big move, it's one super big dynamic move, or it's a super small edge that you just can't hold. And you take that kind of lesson that the rocket gave you, you take it home. If it's a small edge, well, then you could just crank down small edges on your Beastmaker or hangboard or whatever you're using until you're able to do the move. Or if it's a big move, then you go to the campus board and try to increase your max reach moves on the campus board, right? Try to approach the project that way until it falls, and then you got another max grade and you have even more experience, right? And try more boulders in that area. And this is how you progress until you get injured, then you reduce the intensity, and so on and so forth. Ooh, that's an interesting question. Ishan says, what percentage of climbers do you think actually reach their max grade? Pooh. Very few. Very few. Incredibly few. And I can also tell you why. Reaching your max grade, especially when we're talking about outdoor climbing, requires insane amounts of privilege. You essentially have to have someone who sponsors you, who sponsors all your journeys, even if you have all the genetics and the early starting age and all that. You still have to have the privilege to be able to spend a lot of time outdoors and get that experience in, get that mileage in, that is going to allow you to reach your actual max grade, to your actual genetic limit. Some of the climbers are lucky enough to be in that position. They are really, really strong, and they make a lot of money to the brands they are which are sponsoring them. So that makes a lot of sense. But by the vast majority is not in that lucky position. They have regular jobs, they have families, they have that kind of stuff, and then you just can't reach your max grade. But that is completely okay, right? That's just what we have to live with. This is just the reality. So the vast majority doesn't reach their max grade. Ed Cunningham, how long until we climb 9A? I don't know. We will see. We will find out, most definitely. We will find out, most definitely, my friend. Chili Jet. In my local bouldering area, the only one I can get to with public transport, the great jump from 7A to 7C/8A. Should I do all the 7As or just project hard? I can normally do 7A in a session. Okay, you can do 7A in a session. Well, if you can do 7A in a session, then why just not try maybe the easiest 7C of the area, the most consumable 7C of the area? Maybe it suits you. Maybe you could already do 90% of the moves. Maybe there's only one move missing. Then try to get that lesson from the boulder. As I said before, try to specify your training a little bit into that direction, and then tick it off at some point and get the confidence. Lose the grade respect, right? If we have great jumps like that from 7A to 7C and even higher, then it's obvious that we have to deal with a lot of grade respect, because we only have the experience of 7A, and everything beyond that, especially with a huge grade jump, seems so unreachable. But then you touch it and you find out, especially, and here another tip, go with someone who is a lot stronger than you and who actually already projects those hard boulders. Because if you see that something is possible, or watch a video online where someone climbs the boulder, something like that, just to see the beta and to see that it's possible, and then you try it yourself and you find out that you actually can do 5 of the 6 moves, and you're only one move lacking. And then, this is how we lose great respect. This is how we get rid of it, and how we the best way to step into new terrain, to pioneer yourself into new terrain. Wachathenu again. That sounds brutal. I am scared of climbing in Elbsandsteingebirge. Yeah, man, it was some crazy stuff there. Thanks for your answers. I definitely want to check out climbing in Austria. Yeah, for sure. We've got some good stuff here. In the east, it's more limestone. In the west, it's more granite. And both is good. Jacob says, Yo Manny, how hard can a boulder in a 7C and 7C plus route be at max? For me, I always compare an 8A route with, so if it's a super bouldery 8A, you might find something like a 7B boulder in there. But this is already a super bouldery 8A, in my opinion. So if we scale that down to 7C plus and 7C, we would maybe find a 7A plus 7A boulder in a 7C and a 7A plus boulder in a super bouldery 7C route. This is roughly how I would imagine it. Nicolo Darmonego, do you prefer climbing with shorts or with normal long pants? I personally use always shorts because I want to feel free to move however I want, and I don't feel that free with longer pants. Good question, actually. This is a better question than you would think. Because more often than not, these new modern climbing trousers, these really loose climbing trousers, which go really far down to your climbing shoes, which you can wear only if it's colder, obviously, because otherwise you just build up heat and you're going to sweat more. But okay, let's say it's colder and you're going to wear those long shorts and they float around down there and everything. They really impair your vision, actually. Okay, so they make your climbing significantly slower and significantly less flowy, because they are slacking around down there. And when you look down to find your footholds, you have a huge leg like this because your trousers is so big, right? And you can't see beyond your trousers. If you have something like a short trouser, you only have your leg down there, and you can pretty easily see beyond your leg. You can also pretty easily see beyond something uh, like a legging, like a legging that is skin fit, that is, sucking onto your skin. I guess that's why they did it in the early days of climbing, in the old school days when this style was pretty dominant amongst climbers, because they had just better vision. When they just looked, it wasn't as much of a style thing. I mean, maybe it was. Obviously, it was as well. But it was also practical because they could actually see behind their feet and see where the foothold actually is, and then they could hit it properly, and then they could climb faster and more flowy. This is something that I have noticed myself when I switched from the loose long trousers to first leggings, and now I actually prefer even the shorts, because the shorts, yeah, they are light first of all, and they give you perfect vision. That's how I like it these days. I gotta take a sip of water because my voice is already cracking. I already talked more than usual today because we actually had some visitors today. So, yeah. Let's see where the water is. Can I reach it? Oh, yeah. Of course, we've got our beautiful receptacle here. This is the Erdinger Weißbräu aus Bayern. It says here, I don't know if you can read it, aus Bayern. This is a beautiful receptacle where we drink our water from. Mm. It tastes a lot better already, just because of the receptacle, of course. We also have beer. She says we also have beer, but I think I'm not gonna utilize this offer now. Although it's a very tempting one, I have to say. Baumstand says leggings rule for boys too. That's true. PL Media, how to train endurance in a bouldering gym with power endurance cycles. 15 to 20 moves per boulder. Have your 5, 6, 7 boulders, and then keep rotating through those boulders. Do as little rest as possible. Get as hardly pumped. Not hardly is the wrong word, but get a hard pump in your forearms and try to keep up that pump for as long as possible until it burns. And do one set of 1 hour, then you do a bigger rest, then you do another set of 1 hour, and usually if you did the training correctly, you're completely roasted after that. Greg Gavitt. There's another question of PL Media. And any tips on how to 100% focus on the try? Yes. Repeat the moves in your head. You actually start. That's a huge one, because usually people start right away and then they think, okay, in that sequence, I don't remember it 100% anymore, but I'm just going to start. Maybe I have to improvise, or maybe I remember the moves when I'm there. No, you're not going to remember the moves when you're there, because then you're psyched and you're nervous about falling and everything. You're not going to remember the moves. So you better look at the route before you get on it and try to remember the moves on the ground and then go through them so that you'll be sure what you have to do when you're there. And also breathing, right? Breathing calmly and constantly will help you focus 100% on what you have to do to get to the anchor thing. And then guess what? You have much better chances of executing that stuff properly. Do you use anti-hydral to condition your skin? No, never tried it, but it works. I've seen it on people who tried it, not myself, but I've seen it on people, and it works. That I can say for sure, it works. The question is, how healthy is it really, Jacob, thanks for the answer. Here's another one. How far left/right can you climb away from the bolts in an outdoor route? I'm often unsure if this or that hold is in. You mean, okay. So usually it should be self-explanatory, quote unquote, right? It should be, a line should not have to explain itself. A line, a logical line, should not need any eliminations like that or any further descriptions than just the bold line. The bold line should do one significant way up. It should depict one significant way up. And if it's not the case, it could be that the roots are actually too close together, which means the bolters effed up to some degree. And of course, this is very often the case when we see countries where we just don't have a lot of rock, right? Or we see very new touristy climbing areas which are made to be the next big climbing area, and then they just want to get in as many routes as possible into their next guidebook so that they can bring out a guidebook that is as thick as possible so that they can promote it with more than 1,000 routes, right? Yeah, but the quality of the routes matters, not the number of the routes in total. But anyway, that's how they do it nowadays. They cramp the routes into smaller and smaller crags, and by doing it that way, they take away the sovereignty of the single line, right? And this is sometimes unfortunate because some lines really deserve just their own single bolt line, and there should be nothing 2 meters to the left and nothing 2 meters to the right. Not always it is done like that, unfortunately. Again, as I said, sometimes when we see countries, also in Austria, in East Austria especially, this is the case because we don't have a lot of rock. And if we find some good rock, we better make sure that we use everything that we can, that we utilize every line on this rock as best as possible to have something to climb. This is how they do it here because we don't have a lot of rock. But yeah, in the more climbing tourism areas, the problem is more that people want to have thick guidebooks so that they have something big to promote, and then they cramp the lines together, which should be there with more distance between lines. It's just my opinion. So if there are any bolters out there, keep that in mind. Try to make quality over quantity. We want to see good lines rather than a lot of bad lines, right? Usually on a line, it should be self-explanatory what you can use and what not. And you can use everything. No, it doesn't really depend on the grade, because you can have an iffy rest in an 8C or in an 8 or in an 8 or in an 7A, right? If the line is bolted in a way that you can reach this rest, which is just 2 meters to the right of the route, in my opinion, if you can reach it, you should actually be allowed to use it. Eliminations like that, but without this rest from the other route or something, well, then it's an elimination. If you can reach it, you can use it. And if you can reach something that you should not use, well, then they should have made more distance between the lines. Oh, that was too much water. Corona. No. It was just the water. So what do we have? K Wan says, "Hey Manny, I have stronger fingers than you. How is that possible? You have stronger fingers than me? I'm not sure." But I climbed much lower grades. Any suggestion on how to improve? Look at your technique, obviously. If you have stronger fingers than me but climbed much lower grades, I mean, actually, even I would estimate my fingers as weak for the kind of grades that I climb, right? So that means you're even more away from your max grade than yeah, I'm actually quite weak for my max grade, I would say. But this is up for discussion. Obviously, you have to look at your technique then. Climb faster, climb more flowy, climb better. Dimitri Bart says, I only climb open hand. Sometimes I need to crimp half or full because the shape of the holes. I injured myself many times, so I avoid crimping, but now I have to learn, train it. But why? What? I injured myself many times, so I avoid crimping. But I have to learn, train it. But how? I meant how? You mean how to train crimping if you're an open hand climber. The best way to get used to it is, of course, going to your hangboard and trying to stick to the half crimp instead of what is probably happening to you if you're more accustomed to an open style grip, is that you're falling slowly into the open hand when you try to apply a half crimp. This is only natural, and with time you get better at separating the two in your brain, and then you can do the 3 fingers open, the 4 fingers open, and the half crimp separately. You have a separate program in your head then, in the way of how you use your muscles in your forearms, and then you actually have access to all of these three. But if you are naturally a more open hand climber, there's a good chance that you're actually always going to be strong or open handed, which is good because open-handed is also the mode where you have the most reach, and it's also the most injury preventing. Actually, there's only really some strange holds which really require a full crimp, something like a full crimp, for example. Ratzwan Ababai says, same in England. In the Peak District, the bolted routes overlap quite a lot. I can imagine. I think there's not a lot of rock to climb in England, right? But I think when it comes to tread climbing and this Crag stuff where you can put the friends in and stuff like that, it's usually quite obvious, right? The lines go mostly along some sort of cracks or some sort of strange dihedrals or arêtes or something like that. So I would expect it in the Peak District to be actually quite still, although the routes might overlap, but still quite distinctive lines. Evgeny Shevchenko says, hey Manny, once you was asked about progress in planche, you answered that it's not so useful exercise for climbers. Could you continue a row of top 5 to 7 most useful calisthenic exercises? Front lever. Of top 5 to 7 most useful calisthenic exercises, front lever. I'm not so sure if the front lever is really super useful for climbing. Yeah, probably there is some use for it in terms of body strength. The most useful calisthenics exercise for climbing is, in my opinion, the handstand up. The Swiss handstand, I think it's called professionally. That's if you put all your weight onto your hands, and then without using momentum, you're pushing yourself into the handstand with straight arms, though. No bent arms, no pushing motion like in a push-up, for example. You just put your straight hands on the ground and then stand up slowly into the handstand without momentum. This is, I think, what's called a Swiss handstand. And this requires a lot of body strength in your lower back and also in your upper back. And I could feel the body strength gains significantly, although I was already quite advanced in my body strength game. At least I believe that back in the day when I learned this move, I could feel the difference in my climbing. And this is the only calisthenics exercise which, when I started training it, showed me a significant difference on rock. This was really amazing. I had a lot of, I still do this quite a bit because I don't want to lose the ability to do it. But for me, it's quite easy now. I warm up once, and then I'm usually able to do it all the time, because I just developed these kind of muscles there now in the back. And actually, I don't really think that it's so much about developing the muscles, but more about developing the mind-muscle connection, because these muscles, they are usually not used in everyday life, so we completely lose connection to them. But with this exercise, you kind of learn how to activate them again. And funnily enough, they are also useful in climbing. And when your brain has the connection re-established, then you're going to use them automatically when you need them in body strength situations when climbing. And this is how they actually improve your climbing, especially when it's strength. So stepping footholds, which are very far below in overhangs, for example. This is one example where I could feel it. I could feel the difference, that it's better. Some Gaston moves where you need a lot of back, this kind of stuff. So the Swiss handstand is my number one. And then, maybe the planche, the front lever, these are obviously also very body strengthy, but don't have so much to do with climbing, in my opinion. So I definitely couldn't name 5 or 7. I can name one which has significant benefit, and that's the Swiss handstand, and then also planche and front lever. And if I train calisthenics, that's pretty much the 3 things that I do. These 3 things. And I'm actually very weary about doing not too much of the planche stuff and doing not too much of the front lever stuff, because they pack on so much muscle in delts and lats and belly and belly muscles, 6-pack style. You don't need to have that for hard rock climbing. You rather be flat in those areas. What you want is the forearm, because every other thing you have to carry up with those forearms, right? And it's gonna be heavy. I'm the kind of guy who puts on muscle very quickly and easily, so I have to be a bit careful with what I do, because I tend to gain unnecessary muscle relatively quickly, and with that also quite some unnecessary weight. Thanks for the response. Yeah, no problem, man. It was a pleasure. Maxim Kolesnikov asks, did you try to use collagen? The collagen question comes up quite a lot. I don't know what they are doing. Are they making advertisements for that on the internet or stuff? Because every time I get questioned about collagen supplements, any evidence of effectivity, safeness, I have no evidence on effectivity or safeness. I've never tried them. Usually supplements are something supplements do not underlie any safety regulations, I think, in the US, and I'm not sure if that's the case also in Europe, but I suppose it's the case. Supplements are a huge cash cow for certain people, okay? So be very careful. On a good diet, whatever that may be, you should never need to use supplements, okay? If you need to use supplements, you don't eat a good diet. That's just my opinion now. And that means that a vegan diet is not a good diet, because you need to supplement B12, for example, on a vegan diet. And even the B12 that you can get via supplements, it is questionable whether that is actually real B12, whether it's actually bioavailable and utilizable in your body. Yes, of course, you can measure your B12 level going up when you supplement B12, but measure your B12 level is just a number on a test strip, right? This is what this test strip can give you, a concentration of some sort of molecule. Whether this molecule is actually bioactive and bioavailable to your cells, whether it actually furthers health, this is a completely different story. So all these thoughts go into supplements. Just eat some meat from time to time. Collagen is a natural part of meat. If you eat meat from time to time, you automatically eat your collagen, and your body can utilize it. It's some protein, you can digest it in your stomach acid. That's what you have your stomach acid for. You break it down easily, you take it up easily, and you can rebuild the collagen with those amino acids in your own body. And you don't need to supplement it. It's probably also a lot cheaper. we see all these questions about collagen supplements probably nowadays because people are so afraid of eating meat, because of all the vegetarianism and veganism propaganda out there. The people want to avoid all the meats and animal products, but then they want their collagen because they are afraid that their collagen is not proper or strong enough, especially in climbing, obviously, where we use that stuff quite intensely. So yeah, I would say get a good diet. Get a diet where you don't need to supplement anything, and that's what I have to say. For skin and ligaments, strength, of course. Yeah, that's what's collagen. That's what collagen is for. Ed Cunningham, which parts of your climbing career have you seen the biggest jump in progression, and what caused this jump? Or has your progression been linear? My progression has not been linear at all. When I started going outdoors, I progressed really rapidly over the course of I think 6 to 8 months, from 7A plus to 8A actually. But that was because I spent significant time already in the gym and I gained a lot of strength there. And for me, it was more to be able to apply that strength on the outdoors, which is not that easy when you come from an indoor gym, for a number of reasons. But anyway, that's why I progressed really quickly in the beginning, and then I stalled out. I hit it for a year actually. Then I got some progress again over the course of half a year. I think I climbed my first 8A plus, my first 8B, and then also quite at some point my first 8B plus. And then I stalled out again. I think it took me then 2 years to reach my first 8C, and then even 3 more years to reach my first 8C plus. So this is my sort of max grade history. It has not been linear at all, as you can see. It's more like a kind of rapid progress, then stalling out, then progress again, stalling out, progress again, stalling out hugely, a little bit of progress again. So that's the kind of curve that you can expect the more you get closer to your genetic potential, right? It's just like it stalls out. That's how it is. I'm working really close at my genetic potential already. There is certain symptoms which tell me that, and yeah, that's just how it is. We like doing that. Of course, we like working at our limit. K-Wan, the collagen hype is based on one not so convincing scientific study. Well, I can pretty much expect that it's not so convincing, because these studies more often than not are actually used to propagate certain agendas, to make money essentially. And nowadays I would go so far to say any nutritional study, any study that looks at nutrition in any way, shape, or form, whether it's pro-veganism, whether it's anti-veganism, whether it's pro-meat eating, whether it's anti-meat eating, any of them, always view them with skeptic. Always be skeptic about them. Usually the authors have a certain agenda. They want to prove something or want to disprove something. It is also really easy in that field for some reasons to push results towards a certain outcome with statistics, depending on the method you use. Some people use questionnaires, which is a whole nother story, which is really questionable in the literal sense. But anyway, yeah, just look at all of these nutritional studies. Nutritional science is it is not good. In the most part of it is not good. Okay, you would be better off doing your own experiments with your own body and finding out what works best for yourself. Anyway, and do not let yourself be led by certain paradigms that you can't eat that, or you can't mix those things, you can't mix that things. Some people feel good on all types of diets, right? So find out what works for you. I'm still on the search myself a little bit there. Although I have to say I'm really satisfied with where I'm at right now, nutritionally speaking, and I really like it. I really like also the journey that I had to do to arrive where I am right now. It's really interesting, actually. What do you eat before going climbing? I tried McDonald's, but it didn't work. Well, before I go climbing, I eat something that is low in fats. Simple. It can be high in protein, it can be high in carbs, it can be both high in protein and carbs, just low in fats. The reason being, my experience has showed me that when I eat something that is high in fats shortly before a workout, I have worse performance. Why ever that might be, right? It's because maybe the fats slow me down metabolically or whatnot. What I find is that the carbs really work well. And also, if I climb and I'm getting low in sugar, eating sugar in form of a banana or honey milk or all the other stuff that I try. Interesting tip, by the way, banana is a cooling food. It is a tropical fruit. It is a cooling food. So if you have hot conditions, you better get your sugar from a banana because it cools your body down. Honey milk, although having the same sugar levels, if you mix it correctly, is not a cooling food. It is rather a warming food. So if you have very cool conditions, if you have very cold conditions and you already feel almost a bit too cold, then you better replenish your glycogen stores or your sugar level in your blood with honey milk. So this is how I, for example, evaluate what kind of food I take to the crag. What are the conditions? Is it warm? Then I go for the bananas. Is it cold? Then I go for the honey milk, right? This kind of stuff. But yeah, usually it's low fat, the stuff that I eat before workouts. Hey Manny, I just turned 30 and have been bouldering for about 4 months. Having good genetics allowed me to do good progress. Doing now FB 6B. Not bad. Do you see it as possible to achieve similar performance as you? Having good genetics allowed me to good progress. FB 6B 4 months. I don't know how good your genetics really are, but you can definitely get a lot better still. 30 is not too old. It's not super young as well, but it's not too old. So you still have some good years of progress in front of you if you do it the right way. I don't know. Is it going to be as good as my performance? Definitely possible. Depends on your genetics and your dedication, I would say. And yeah, also your privilege, obviously, because you can be dedicated as much as you want. If you have a family at home that you have to go to work, you have a 9-to-5 job, it's obviously going to be harder, right? So do you have the privilege? Do you have the dedication? Do you have the genetics? From this depends this kind of stuff. Maxim Kolesnikov, I eat meat freely. Heard about its usefulness from sports doctor, but mostly in context of restoring after trauma. I read that after getting about 25 years, you're not synthesizing collagen anymore. That sounds like a pretty generalization, pretty tough generalization there. These kind of year things, beyond 20 years, it's only going downhill. Beyond 25 years, you're not synthesizing collagen anymore. If you wouldn't synthesize collagen anymore beyond 25 years, we would probably die at 30 because collagen is super essential in the body. It serves a huge number of purposes, right? So the question is maybe how good is the quality of the collagen you're synthesizing? Do you get the proper nutrients in? Do you maybe get some raw stuff in from time to time? Okay, not only cooked stuff. There is a huge difference between some foods when they are cooked and when they are raw, when it comes to utilizability for the body. So all these things play a role. But if you eat meat freely, then there is really no need to worry about collagen. There is definitely no need to supplement collagen because probably in the collagen supplement, there isn't even more collagen than in the meat you already eat. So it doesn't really make sense. to spend the money. I watched a video about overtraining, but there is no info about how to train in this case. If you're in a really overtraining situation, in a real overtraining situation, not like a lot of people who say, oh yeah, I was overtrained, I needed a bit of rest, and I rested 1 week, and then I kept going. A real overtraining situation will require you to rest at least 2 months probably from your sport, because the not only your body is fed up with the sport at this point, is also your mind, right? And you don't want to, you actively don't want to do it anymore. So you have to basically rest from it as long as it takes until your willingness to actually do the sport comes back. So for some people, this takes years. If you're really deep down into this kind of stuff, I'm pretty sure it could take years, okay? And then they come back and they feel the psych again, and then they are very soon back at where they were when they stopped in terms of fitness, and maybe even beyond that. There's cases of that. People who didn't climb for over 2 years, over 3 years, and then they came back. After 2 months, they were where they were when they stopped. And then they even exceeded that because they just rode the comeback train, right? They just rode the comeback wave. This is what I'm always talking about when I'm talking about bigger rests and how they sometimes can be useful for breaking plateaus, actually. A real overtraining situation will not allow you to train in any way, shape, or form for your sport. Adam G, is it good to run a concurrent periodization program for fingerboarding with max hangs and density hangs once a week, or would it be more beneficial to focus on them one at a time? Is it good to run a concurrent fingerboarding with my hand and then? I don't really know what you mean, to be honest. I don't really know what you mean. What are density hangs? What are density hangs? What is the difference between max hangs and density hangs? You mean, okay, you probably mean something along the lines of training max hangs and power endurance hangs, like repeaters, for example, parallel, or focus at them for 4 weeks, let's say max hangs, and then 4 weeks density hangs. In that case, I can tell you right away, focus on one thing for 4 weeks and then focus on the other thing the other 4 weeks. Do not try to do anything parallel, because then your body can't really focus on getting better at one thing. At some point, if you're getting really close to your limit, your body really has to focus. You have to give him the ability, the chance to just focus on one thing, to get that one thing a little bit better, and then focus on another thing and get that one a little bit better. And in that time, the other thing that you've improved before may fall down even a bit again. But at some point, you level up on all your single stuffs, and then you level up in general, right? So this is how you would attack this kind of stuff, in my opinion. Interesting question there. Do you think climbing is becoming too commercial? People these days are obsessed with grades and competitions, but I worry the lifestyle aspect is being lost. For example, the simple joy of nature. Yeah, definitely. Definitely, that's definitely a thing. What I'm more worried about is when these dudes, these kind of gym dudes, then go into the nature and they bring their cigarettes, they bring their beer cans, they bring their Cliff Bar packages and whatnot, and then they leave their trash there. This is what I'm most annoyed about, because if you are a guy who is in the nature a lot and you have experience with being in nature, then you don't do this kind of stuff anyway, because you are aware where you are. You're aware that you're not the only one here. Other people will go here as well, and they want to enjoy the nature themselves the same way that you enjoyed it. So you won't leave that kind of trash there. It's only the people who never go into nature, who don't have experience with that kind of stuff at all, they think they can behave there like they can behave in the bouldering gym, where it doesn't really matter that much if you just lose a bit of chalk and it's a bit dirty and that kind of stuff, right? So yeah, this is what I'm most concerned about. Is it getting too commercial? Yeah, definitely a lot more people are trying to make money with climbing these days than it was back in the day 30, 40, 50 years ago. That's for sure. We can see this everywhere on the internet as well. The good thing, the cake is getting bigger. The cake in total is getting bigger because there's more just people in the general crowd familiar with the sport. But it's also the pieces are getting smaller and smaller because more and more people are trying to profit off of this crowd. They are selling more and more hangboards. They're selling more and more chalk bags and whatnot. They're all selling. Everybody is trying to make their own share of the cake with their new hangboard or their new stuff. And even now, I have the feeling with bolting new areas, it has become quite a commercial thing as well. People are actively trying to find areas where they could imagine the next big popular climbing trip, holiday destination, and then they go there actively with lots of funding and bolt new routes. This is what exactly happens then. What I said, that there is route after route super close together, so that they have a lot of routes which they can promote in a super big guidebook and all this kind of stuff. Really, the quality is suffering. The quantity is of course there, but the quality is suffering. This is also not good. Now climbing is going to the Olympics. It should have gone to the Olympics. Now the big thing happens, so it didn't occur. But yeah, we'll see what kind of impact that has on the sport. I'm more the nature kind of guy. I don't really care so much about all the gym stuff and all the competitions. I watch it from time to time with friends because it's entertaining. But at the same time, I thought about this recently when I thought about the question, why is climbing in the Olympics, or why it is rather not in the Olympics? And when I see modern bouldering competitions, it is really, I don't know how often actually in bouldering competitions really the best athlete wins. Right? There is a huge factor of uncertainty when it comes to climbing competition results. One climber really has to be outstandingly much stronger and better than the rest of the crew to really show themselves, to really show that they win significantly more often than the rest of the crew. That's what I'm trying to say. It's really hard to stand out in terms of climbing competitions. On rock, for example, it is much more selective because you can really put yourself apart if you are able to just be able to climb those kind of grades in just less of time than someone else. Then you can say, yeah, you have better skill than this person. But in terms of or you just have better reach, or the routes suits you more. So it's really hard to compare skill in the climbing sport in general, probably. And even with modern bouldering competitions, as it's becoming much more dynamic and coordinative, and have the feeling, if you just are unlucky at some point, but this is of course the case in any sport, right? If you're honest, if you're just unlucky, you just have a really bad result, even though you're maybe the best athlete of the crew, right? So it's not the results of competitions don't seem to reflect the actions. This is a very simple competition. But anyway, kind of off topic here. But interesting to think about this kind of stuff. Finger Dinger says, did you try creatine? No. I wonder if it would make sense to take it periodically. For example, 3 months of strength training, bouldering, then stop it, get lean and crush. If you use to the power, to the extra power that you get from creatine, because I think you would get it if you have never supplemented it, and then try it, because it is an energy currency in our body, and getting it in will probably increase your power at least. I don't know, man. The creatine question in the climbing sports is always the same discussion. You get some extra power, but you also get extra weight. Now the question is, what is more important? Is it more important to have the extra power so that you can carry the extra weight that you have? Because creatine pulls a lot of water. It is essentially a salt, so it pulls a lot of water. You're gonna be 1 kilo, maybe 1.5, 2 kilos heavier than you were before. You also have the extra power, but is it really gonna outweigh the extra kilos? Kilos are so important. Body weight is so important. It is finger strength divided by body weight. Okay. Evgeny Shevchenko, thanks for the answer. It was a pleasure. No deep overtraining, not deep overtraining. The question more about cycling, I think. When you stop progressing and need to decrease your loading, doing light training, how to? I think if you realize that you're seriously plateauing out, and you're not plateauing out because of injury, which is very often the case, you could try doing a bigger break. Just try doing a bigger break, even though you're not injured at all or anything. Just try to reduce a bit of fitness and then try to ride the comeback train and crush the plateau that way. It's maybe better than just keeping training, but at a lower intensity. This is the strategy that I would go for if I was injured. If I was injured, I would keep training, but keep training at lower intensity to try to climb and train the injury away, because that is, in my experience, the best approach to doing that stuff. When it just comes to breaking a plateau, you can also just rest completely and try to ride the comeback train afterwards. Nicolo Darmonego, have you ever bolted a route? No. Would you consider bolting soon? I would consider trying to bolt, but not soon. I'm not in an area now where there is still a lot of potential to develop. Back in Leonidio, there's actually a lot of potential to develop, so maybe there. Oh, the stream is already going for 2 hours and 32 minutes. We had good connection, and we had interesting questions today. It was an amazing stream, I have to say. How do you like the Sunday thing? The poll that I did was slightly in favor of Sunday, but most of people said it was good for Thursday and Sunday to do a stream, because I'd like to do it on a more regular basis, because I really enjoy the live streams actually. And so that means that for the future, in the near future, I'm trying to gonna do 1 stream per week, probably either on Thursday or on Sunday, since it's almost equal in what the people prefer. And also, I really hope that the microphone setup finally works, because last time I set up the microphone, but it didn't really pick it up, and then it used the microphone of the laptop anyway. And this was really disappointing, because I spent a lot of effort, setting everything up with the microphone, and then checking the stream in hindsight, I saw that the software didn't even pick up the microphone signal. So now I hope that works. But it seems to work. People gave really good feedback on the audio quality. All right, guys. I think we're gonna end the stream now. My voice is already hurting almost. We had some visitors today, and I talked more than I usually talk. I tell you this much. I talked more than I usually talk already today. And now on top of that, we had the live stream, 2.5 hours of talking. Stefan S. says, a cool session. Appreciated this. Keep it up, man. Grüße aus der Schweiz. Oh, it was definitely a good session, man. Maxim Kolesnikov says, thank you, man. It was a pleasure to have you guys on again. I think we're gonna end the stream now. I would like to already announce that I'm gonna do another one next week, either on Thursday or on Sunday again. I still don't know when. As always, I'm gonna try to announce it in some sort of way either in the community chat, the community tab, or below an actual video and stuff like that. Very cool stream. People say, yeah, that's awesome. It was an awesome stream. Really interesting questions. Yeah, and I hope you're crushing in these weird times. Stay healthy, stay strong. Drop a like maybe if you enjoyed. And also drop some interesting questions down below if you're watching the stream in hindsight, so that we have something interesting to talk about in the next stream. How would that be? All right, guys. I think I'm going to leave now. I'll see you soon in the next video, my friends. Stay strong, keep crushing. Bye. Have a good night.